You see, this weekend with Bola Tinubu is going to be worse than you can ever imagine. Bola Tinubu is the typical example of a man who is telling you that he's taking you to Ibadan, but he's facing Meduguri, and you are telling us to give him time. So give him time to drive you into Sambisa forest or what? Nothing is going to come out of this government, I can assure you. And
how poor are Nigerians? In November 2022, the National Bureau of Statistics announced that over 133 million Nigerians were living in poverty on that year alone. This figure represented about 63% of the country's population. In 2024, the World Bank revealed that 14 million more Nigerians have sunk into extreme poverty in the last 1 year under President Bola Tinubu's government. Imagine living in a world where every day is a fight to find food, shelter, and clean water. A world where healthcare and education are luxuries, not basic rights. This is the harsh reality of extreme poverty in Nigeria. Living on less than $1.90 a day, individuals are forced to make impossible choices between hunger and dignity. They scrape by eating only one meal a day, or sometimes going without the food altogether. Shelter is a makeshift hut or a crowded slum vulnerable to disease and disaster. Clean water is a rare commodity and healthcare a distant dream. When illness strikes, they can't afford treatment, leaving them vulnerable to suffering and death. Education is a privilege reserved for the fortunate, leaving generations trapped in ignorance. Extreme poverty breeds despair, hopelessness, and shame. It is a constant stress that gnaws at the soul, eroding self-worth and dignity. It is isolation, marginalization, and powerlessness. This cycle of poverty is cruel, passing from parent to child, entramping entire communities. It is a legacy of struggle where survival is the only goal. Mind you, the extreme poverty is non-discriminatory. It does not exempt southwest Nigeria from its territory. This Yoruba woman has her face itched with the lines of hardship as she stoops to gather discarded fresh tomatoes. The once vibrant fruits, now rejected and trampled, mirror the woman's own plight, cast aside, forgotten, and struggling to survive.
The situation country is getting out of hand already. People are really suffering, wallahi. Obi ẹnìkan lélẹ̀ yẹ ẹnìkan lélẹ̀ lọ́bọ́lẹ̀ ẹnu mọ́tò lọ́rí àwọn àtàlẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ títì lọ́dẹ̀ ń ṣà. Tó bá yẹ pé country yìí wà òkè ìṣó possible kan máa ṣàtàlẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ títì lọ́dẹ̀ máa lọ jẹ́ báyìí.
This image is a gut-wrenching reflection of Nigeria's crippling poverty. The woman's actions speak volumes. Every tomato rescued is a meal salvaged, a hunger pang satisfied, and a glimpse of hope revived. The gutter, once a symbol of waste and neglect, has become a lifeline. The Yoruba woman's search is a desperate scramble for sustenance. It brings to mind that poverty knows no bounds. Now, elsewhere in the bustling city of Lagos, Nigerians gathered eagerly awaiting a handout of bread from a white man. This basic staple, often taken for granted, had become a coveted prize. But what made this scene even more memorable was what happened before the bread appeared. Initially, the white man offered Bibles, symbolizing hope and spiritual nourishment. Yet, few people showed up. It was only when bread replaced the Bibles that the crowd swelled. The message was clear. Hunger had become a more pressing concern than salvation.
This is Ajawo Estate. You can see a white man there sharing bread to people in Ajawo Estate. But this morning he shared a Bible. People were not online like this. The line was few. But now see bread line. See the white man. Can you see it? Can you see him? See people online. You see him in Ajawo Estate. This is Park Lane Hotel. near Park Lane Hotel, and this is Eleganza. So people see ebi ń pa àwọn èèyàn. That's what people are shouting. Ebi ń pa àwọn èèyàn. Why? This man won't finish us before he go release this country for us. Can you see a white man sharing bread and Bible? See people jubilating.
Beyond the unemployment lines, a more insidious threat is shrouding the lives of Nigeria's employed citizens. Hunger and poverty, often assumed afflictions of the jobless, have infiltrated the ranks of the working class. The implication is that even those with steady incomes are struggling to stay afloat. Chibuzo Okereke, a public affairs analyst, sheds light on this alarming trend.
World Bank report I know is every 6 months or so, and now we are talking about 129 million in absolute poverty, not just multidimensionally poor people. And one of the important highlights of that report is to the fact that even those that are employed are also living below poverty line. So our methodology even for rating had to change when we think that those who are employed or underemployed have escaped the poverty net. This report is now telling us that even employment is not enough to guarantee you away from the poverty net, and it's a very, very big, challenge.
The level of poverty in this country is beyond understanding, and those are things that have actually made matters worse. There are so many unemployed people. So they just took advantage. I can assure you that a well-employed youth, a gainfully employed youth, it's very rare for them to be involved in those kind of terrible things we saw during this week. For this reason, I plead with the government.
The current hardship in Nigeria reminds us of the words of a former president of the United States, Barack Obama, at Nelson Mandela's funeral. Obama said that if you have to win election by dividing the people through bigotry and hatred, you are not going to be able to govern them, neither will you be able to unite them later.
Here's one thing I know. If you have to win a campaign by dividing people, you're not going to be able to govern them. You won't be able to unite them later if that's how.
The current hardship brings to mind what transpired in the 2023 elections, where some Yoruba bigots had to violate their reason and conscience to be governed by tribal sentiments. There were only a few prominent Yorubas, such as Dele Farotimi, who rose beyond tribalism because the unity and future of Nigeria were more important to them.
We'll not be talking about an election in 2027 in the presence of the multiple madnesses that have remained with us, in the presence of a situation where a corrupt INEC chairman will open his mouth and blithely declare on national TV, go to court. We can't be having that and be talking about an election in 2027. We must at least be honest enough to tell ourselves what is in front of us. If there is going to be an election worthy of his name, I will be out there supporting Peter Obi. If there will be an election, and if we still even have a country, the way Bulaba is going with Nigeria, what do we know that will be left of this country by 2027? What will be left of this country? An emir is being killed in his own domain after ransom war. And we are talking about 2027. An Oba was killed. 2 Obas, for instance, were killed in Ekiti for the other time. And we are still talking about 2027. You practically don't have a functional state again. Somebody is single-handedly, without recourse to any due process, the due process law be damned, the PPP law be damned, single-handedly without public tender of any sort, be awarding a road at 4 billion naira per kilometer. And you are still talking about a country. Why are we lying to ourselves? We must, even if they will not agree, we must be unapologetic in telling these truths.
Dele Farotimi is a multifaceted individual, a lawyer, seasoned public speaker, and author with a strong passion for social change. Dele is an activist and political commentator using his voice to advocate for a better Nigeria. As a member of Citizens Rally Against Oppression, he champions the cause of liberation from mental slavery and weaponized poverty. During the election, Dele vowed that he would leave Nigeria if Tinubu won the election. Months after Tinubu was declared winner by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, people tackled Dele on his decision to remain in the country. But the activist rightly argued that leaving the country would only confirm Tinubu's victory. He argued that if Tinubu was to win, he had to be voted for by a majority of Nigerians, which he argued did not happen.
So many times that I'm thankful for the opportunity to perhaps explain it so that the idiots who have continued to assume that I have broken my word would be clear. I said if he won the presidency, I'll leave Nigeria on exile. So let me clear that up. For him to have won, the people would have had to have voted for him. We didn't vote for him. He stole the presidency. Yakubu and INEC sold him the presidency. The presidency is not an expression of the people's will. It is an expression of the debauchery of INEC and the height of our judicial corruption. He did not win the presidency. If I had left, I would have been sanitizing and deodorizing a skunk. If nothing else, I rise and fall by my word. And when I said that I would live on exile if this man won, it was so that people would know that I do not believe Nigerians to be depraved enough to be possessed of the idiocy to vote somebody like him into power. And they did not. Anybody who prefers to delude themselves can continue to delude themselves, but Tinubu knows, INEC knows, the judiciary knows, and so do a lot of Nigerians, that Tinubu did not win the presidency.
Indeed, Nigeria needs more of this kind of figures from all regions to conquer the menace of bigotry and corruption. Poverty is no respecter of any tribe or religion.